Hello, it's Joe Zimhart here again. It's near the end of the year, December 30th, and 2024. I hope you all have a happy new year in a couple of days. In any case, something called the Telepathy Tapes has come to my attention in the past month or so. And it's, as it says on Reddit, the Telepathy Tapes is taking America by storm, but it has its roots in old autism controversies. So let's take a look at this, and I'll give a little bit of a different spin on it than what I've been reading in terms of critical information. But, I listened to the tapes. There are 7 of them, and they basically make the claim, as this one article says, that's critical. It says that some nonverbal autistic children are actually telepaths who can read minds, speak to each other, and acquire knowledge ahead of what the rest of humanity knows. And this speaking to each other telepathically, and also in something called the Hill, which is some sort of a supernatural place where minds can meet and discuss things and gather information from something that the 19th century brought to us called the Akashic records through Madame Blavatsky. Akashic records are something like an eternal library where all information and knowledge is contained, and if a psychic or a person with ESP powers can tap into it, they can resolve problems, tell the future, tell us exactly what happened when the pyramids were built and how they did it. All of this information is available to them. Kind of like a cosmic Wikipedia. But, so, can autistic kids, or some that are called savants, do these things? Do they have these telepathic powers? So the article says the podcast takes a credulous stance on research into psi phenomena, failing to mention important studies that with clearly negative results, failing to give voice to skeptics that are really familiar with this kind of testing. So, I listened to the tapes. I gave them an open mind. After the first couple, I started thinking, well, maybe there's something here. Autistic kids are weird. I used to work with them back in the early 70s in a large institution, and also in a psych hospital for 25 years. I met them, so I'm real familiar with autism. I have autism in my family. I feel for people with autism. I've done interventions with high-functioning autistic kids on the spectrum that have got caught up in cults. And working with them is different than working with people that don't have that quality or that disorder of autism. So I'm not here trying to deny that autistic kids have some kind of savant powers. Some of them do. But do they have telepathic powers? I don't think so. But where does all this come from? The tapes say that they're introducing a whole new paradigm into the way we're going to be looking at ourselves and autism in the future. I don't think there's a new paradigm. This is a very old paradigm. And let me take a look at something here called Buddhism and Science, which I reread some time ago. It came out in 2008. And it's by Professor Donald Lopez Jr., who is an expert on Tibetan and ancient Buddhism. And he takes a look at, kind of like the telepathy tapes, the scientific approach to Buddhism. That the argument has been since the 19th century, when Buddhism became more an open study because of the translations that were coming out in English and French and other languages. They noticed that the Buddha was quite rational. He wanted to introduce a cause and effect analysis of reality, and that it was somewhat compatible with science. So the idea that Buddhism is somewhat scientific sort of was passed down. But that's only half the story. Buddhism embraces that paradigm that the telepathy tapes claims to be introducing as something new, when in fact it's really just an old belief system that we've had for quite a while in many religions. But let's look at what is said about the Buddha and psychic power. Psychic power or iti, is an ability to act in ways not conforming to the known laws of nature, which is caused by releasing or developing the power of the mind. The Buddha accepted that some spiritually advanced people can manifest certain psychic abilities, and indeed he himself occasionally manifested some of them. The main psychic powers mentioned in the Buddhist scriptures are telepathy, psychokinesis, levitation, and the ability to separate the astral body, and there's a Sanskrit word for this, which I'm not going to tell you, from the physical body. The Buddha had a cautious attitude towards psychic powers. The reasons for this were because such powers attract those who have them, enormous reverence, which can easily lead to corruption, and also because most of those who claim to have such powers are actually imposters. Further, the Buddha felt that having faith in those who have virtue, integrity, and mental control is more sound than having faith in those who could levitate or read minds. All right, so there's this claim that the Buddha had these psychic powers and could bilocate and levitate and read minds. But to him, it wasn't important. In the telepathy tapes, on the other hand, they see it as ultimately important, that this could save us and save the world, bring us knowledge that we need from everything about climate change to curing cancer, to how to travel in space, you name it. These autistic savants, the tapes claim, have the ability to tap into that kind of ultimate knowledge. So, as I said, when I got into the tapes, I got kind of caught up in the narrative. The producer, her name's Ky. She herself, has been a passionate advocate for people with special needs dating back to her high school years, where she spearheaded the inclusion program and worked as an aide to classmates who had autism and other disabilities. So she has some skin in this game. She wants this to be real, even though she said she tried to do everything necessary from a scientific point of view with her cameras and blinds and other things when she was taping these kids giving telepathic information with their mother or their family member. It's believable if you just listen to the tape. But then as we go on, she starts introducing people like Deepak Chopra and Rupert Sheldrake, and then the mentor, Dr. Hennessy Powell, who led her into this whole realm. Those people lack the kind of rigorous scientific abilities, I think, and maybe will, to look at this issue of whether there's telepathy or not going on in a proper way. So the tapes began to fall apart for me because I saw too many red flags by the last three, and the claims were quite fantastic. There's a lot of controversy about them, but I think that the saying that comes from ex-cult members, especially one that was in the Jim Jones group, she once said that if you find something that appears too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. And I think that's what's happening in the telepathy tapes is people can get caught up in the narrative, much like you're in a guided hypnotic session. And the so-called critical brain, the prefrontal cortex, gets bypassed through the process of hypnosis or storytelling or any kind of absorption. When someone's absorbed in like a novel, peripheral awareness diminishes and focused awareness increases. And the same thing happens in the tape. Some people get highly focused while they're listening to these things, get all caught up in the possibilities that are mentioned in it, and then shut off the critical thinking. And once enthusiasm sets in, they don't want to hear the criticism because that causes cognitive dissonance. It might say to oneself, maybe I was wrong. And when someone's enthusiastic about something, that's the last thing they want to hear, is that they might be wrong. So I think that's where these telepathy tapes go way off. I think, like this article from McGill University by Jonathan Jarry, and I'll put a link to it. He says the telepathy tapes prove we all want to believe, and he basically shows how the narrator, the producer of this, her name's Ky Dickens. She says in episode 7, if I had $1 million, I'd want to open a healing and education center where non-speakers, meaning the autistic non-speakers, the savants, could work with the best minds in science and math and, healthcare, so they could heal the planet and people and relationships and animals. So there's another agenda here. There's going to be fundraising. There's going to be a way to use these kids as psychics in order to get us this incredible information. I think this whole thing's going to be a fad. I think it's going to fade out, just like the J B Rhine experiments did nearly 90 years ago, when he claimed to prove telepathy by using these cue cards that people claim to read. And that all fell apart because there was a lot of flaws in his studies, and experts in that field have shown that J B Rhine experiments weren't all that great and didn't prove anything about our psychic powers. So I'm going to leave that go. I'll set up the links to what I read here, and you may not agree with me, but that's my position on this after looking at autism and cults and influence games, for the past half century. So anyway, I hope you have a good day and a good year, and thanks for listening.